limit is x goes to 2 of 3x squared minus 4x minus 4 over the square root of 5x squared plus 8x minus 3x. The first thing we're going to do is plug a 2 in for each of the x's. 3 times 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 4 divided by the square root of 5 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2, and then minus 3 times 2. 2 squared is 4 times 3 is a 12. 4 times 2 is an 8, so we have a minus 8. And then minus 4. In the denominator, 2 squared is 4 times 5 is a 20. And 8 times a 2 is a 16, so plus 16. And then 3 times 2 is a 6, so minus a 6. In the numerator, 12 minus 8 is 4, minus 4. In the denominator, 20 plus 16 is 36. So we have 4 minus 4 over the square root of 36 is 6, minus 6. We have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. We will need to rework this. Since we have a root combination, a root involving the variable x in some way added or subtracted together with at least one other term, that's in the denominator here. We can try the root conjugate method. We will have limit as x goes to 2 of 3x squared minus 4x minus 4 divided by root of 5x squared plus 8x minus 3x. I'm just rewriting the entire limit. And we're now going to multiply by the root conjugate. Now the root conjugate is the same terms in the root combination, but opposite sign between them, so it'll be a plus between them. And we're going to put 1 in the numerator as well. So we have a form of 1 when we multiply. Multiplying by a 1 does not change the value, it just changes the look. And now we're going to multiply these. So we have limit as x goes to 2 of, in the numerator, those are not root conjugates of each other, and therefore I'm not going to actually FOIL that out. I'm going to keep it factored, but they are multiplying each other, so we will write them next to each other, exactly as you see it. In the denominator, those are root conjugates, so we will FOIL that out. First, root of 5x squared plus 8x times root of 5x squared plus 8x will be 5x squared plus 8x. The outside, which is a root times a positive 3x, will be a positive 3x times the root of 5x squared plus 8x. The inside is negative 3x times the root of 5x squared plus 8x. And then the last is negative 3x times a positive 3x, which is going to be a negative 9x squared. The outside and inside terms cancel, as they always do for a FOILing of root conjugates. They are equal value opposite sign. We can now combine together the like terms. That will be those two. So we have limit as x goes to 2. The numerator I'm going to just leave alone for now. So I'll just rewrite it again. And this will be over 5x squared minus 9x squared is a negative 4x squared. And then plus the 8x. At this point we have power functions. We still have 0 over 0. We need to factor and cancel. We have a 0 happening in the numerator due to this expression, in the denominator due to this expression, so we're going to want to factor this. Since x is going to 2, I expect an x minus 2 factor in both the numerator and denominator. In the numerator, we have to trinomial factor. Since it's 3x squared, it will be factoring to a 3x and an x. and then we have the remaining expression of 5x squared plus 8x plus 3x. What we need are two numbers that multiply to be a negative 4, so one will need to be positive, one will need to be negative, and then add to a negative 4 after one of them is multiplied by a 3 due to the 3x right here. Now 4 is either 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. We have to try each combination. If we try a 1 and a 4, if you put a 4 and a 1 here, that won't seem to work. That'll give us a 12 and a 1. If you put the 4 here and the 1 here, that will give us a 4 and a 3, and that will not combine to be a 4. So it sounds like a 2 and a 2 will work. So I'll put a 2 here and I'll put a 2 here. That will give us a 2, and that will give us a 6. We're going to want the 6 to be negative, and we're going to want the 2 to be positive to add up to a negative 4x. And no surprise, there's the x minus 2 factor in the numerator that we expected to see. So that kind of hints how to factor it. In the denominator, we have just two terms, so we can do a common factor. A negative 4 and an x can factor out of there, so a negative 4x, and that will leave us with a positive x and a minus 2. And there's the x minus 2 factor in the denominator. Those x minus 2's can cancel. We'll want to cancel those, so we no longer have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. And we're left with 3x plus 2 times the root of 5x squared plus 8x plus 3x, and then all of that over a negative 4x. Our next step is to plug a 2 in for each of the x's. So that'll give us 3 times 2 plus 2 times the root of 5 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2 plus 3 times 2, and all of that divided by negative 4 times 2. We'll now want to simplify this. So this will become 3 times 2, which is a 6, plus a 2. That's an 8. We have the root of 5 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4 times a 5 is a 20. So we have the root of 20 plus 8 times 2 is a 16. And then 3 times 2 is a 6. And all of this divided by negative 4 times 2, which is a negative 8. Since the 8 in the numerator is multiplying, we can actually cancel those 8s out. That negative will stay around. That'll actually leave us a 1 in the denominator. A negative 1 in the denominator divided by negative 1 is the same as multiplying by negative 1, so we can just put the negative 1 in front. And 20 plus 16 is 36. So we have the negative of the root of 36, which is a 6, plus another 6. 6 plus 6 is 12, and we end up with negative 12.